Well, ENC reporter Govan Whittles is following that story for us and joins me now. Good evening, Govan. Now, describe, I mean, you have a history, you've been covering this story for quite some time. Describe to us, from what you know, the relationship between Mathunjwa and Myeza.
Well, the former Amcu Deputy President Sanele Myeza and the President Joseph Mathunjwa go back 15 years. Both of them worked at BHP Billiton in Mpumalanga. Of course, that's where the President Joseph Mathunjwa was expelled from the National Union of Mine Workers and went on to form Amcu. So since then, they've been building Amcu together, and they've really consolidated Amcu's membership within the coal sector, and they moved towards the platinum sector, where Mr. Myeza particularly was instrumental in raising the membership. But the Amcu President and Mr. Myeza have not been speaking since February. That was the last time that they had spoken. That's also because the relationship broke down as more supporters or members of Amcu started lobbying Mr. Myeza to potentially challenge Mr. Joseph Mathunjwa for the position of president. And during the emergence of these power dynamics, that's when the relationship soured. So we know that even though they haven't spoken since February, Mr. Myeza does want to speak to Mr. Mathunjwa and sort out their differences. And I did get a chance to speak to him. I was in Emalahleni today, where he appeared at the CCMA, and he said that he's hopeful that they could sit across the table from each other and sort this thing out once and for all. Let's have a listen to what they said.
That's the ideal situation, whether we sit across to iron this thing out or we sit across to argue the case before the CCMA. I mean, the man is competent. He has been a unionist for many years. He has appeared in a number of matters, much more complicated than the matter we are dealing with, and I have great respect for him. So I'm sure we can sit across the table and deal with this matter.
But where did it go wrong? I mean, what happened, bringing their relationship to what it is now?
Right. The reason why Mr. Myeza was suspended from Amcu is because he had not received his bonus payments for 2 years, and had stacked up a number of concerns which had been raised by the members, and sent several letters to the Amcu President asking him to deal with this matter. And at the last NEC meeting of Amcu in May this year, when Mr. Myeza was to be given an opportunity to raise these concerns and to talk about why he didn't receive the money, just before the item on the agenda came for his turn to speak, the agenda was recalled by the Amcu President Joseph Mathunjwa. They took a break. When they came back from the meeting, Mr. Mathunjwa had introduced a new item on the agenda, which was the suspension of Mr. Myeza for ill discipline. And that motion passed within the NEC, and he received a verbal suspension. Since then, they haven't been speaking at all. And that's really like the breakdown. That was the final nail in the coffin for their relationship.
But what is Sanele Myeza being accused of?
Sanele Myeza is being accused of ill discipline and breaching the constitution of Amcu by engaging with Amcu members in KZN in a manner which is not in line with the constitution. You see, I did put this question directly to the Amcu President and to Mr. Myeza himself. They're both quite cagey about what the details of what exactly happened, and we're expecting that to come out in the CCMA hearing, which will be happening tomorrow again. But what we do know for a fact is that Mr. Myeza claims that allegations of ill discipline have been used by a number of Amcu leaders to dismiss other Amcu shop stewards and regional organizers. And in this case, it seems he's suggesting that this is once again what's happening.
Okay. So it'll be interesting. So when are they going to their elective conference again?
The Amcu elective conference was set down for October. It was supposed to happen and it was postponed. The NEC member who I spoke to, of the Amcu NEC member, said that no new date has been set down for the conference, and this is heightened tensions. In fact, this is what has emboldened Mr. Myeza supporters to now come out and publicly challenge the president again, calling for that conference.
Do we know if any other senior members of Amcu are prepared to take Joseph Mathunjwa on?
We know that so far the West Rand regional chairperson has been dismissed for taking on the president. So has the Mpumalanga regional organizer, and so has one of the most senior paralegal officers. And we know that in Rustenburg, the entire board of trustees of Amcu's of the pension fund were removed by the national leadership because they refused to implement the Gula pension funds or to refuse to campaign for the Igula Pension Fund to be brought on by the company. So we have several examples of Amcu members, provincial leaders, regional leaders, who have all attempted to take on the president, but have now ended up outside of the union.
Well, speaking of which, are they compliant now? I mean, in terms of what the law prescribes should be the process followed by anybody who has to head the fund?
Mr. Myeza is the former chairperson of the Igula Pension Fund. At the time of his dismissal, the Igula Pension Fund had not been taken on by any of the mining companies, and their compliance is under investigation by the Financial Conduct Authority, but at the same time they're looking at whether or not they are compliant with the law, but whether or not they have the backing of all their members. We do know that this is a tricky one because the Igula Pension Fund essentially is supposed to represent the retirement savings of Amcu members who are mine workers. Those Amcu members are currently signed up to the Mine Workers Provident Fund, and the Board of Trustees of the Mine Workers Provident Fund is dominated by the National Union of Mine Workers. That is why this is such a tricky issue, and that is why Amcu is pushing so hard to try and get some control over their workers' retirement savings.
Okay, that's where we're going to leave it for now.